Welcome. This is Chapter 4, Week 2, Algorithms and Ciphers. So what we're going to cover this week is symmetric algorithm, asymmetric, some streaming ciphers, block ciphers, and how we manage our keys. As we talked about, they're extremely important. So let's take a high-level look at algorithms. Basically, they're just all encrypted, turn plain text into ciphers. That's the part that does it. It's the middle part. It's the programming. And we're not going to get too deep in depth into that. But it's also could be it's a standalone application that you could put into your program or however you want to use it. It uses a known key and it determines the level of encryption. So the algorithms are an important part of how everything comes together. Symmetric algorithms, basically it puts piece together information along with the key. Everything's in it scrambled. Could be open and can be easily open and distributed easily. Must provide the key in the encryption method. So it's an important thing that we have to enclose that key with it. It's just conventional encryption. There's nothing fancy about it. It's a simple design to do and easy functions. So what are some strengths? It's very fast. It's very difficult to break. Freely available tools. You can get it anywhere pretty readily. Highly efficient. It has multiple modes, it's confidential, and it does have some good key management. Weaknesses: the key is negotiation, exchange, distribution, poorly scalable. So for large things, this isn't the best. Limited security, noisy channels, and error connections. So there's some of the downsides to it. And if you take a look at this, if you notice some of the things right here, documents to be encrypted, we have does the algorithms right in here, and we have the encrypted document on the end. To unencrypt, we have the encrypted document. It goes through the algorithm, but notice right here in the center, we have a single key that does both. And that's what makes this so readily available, is that we have one key that we have to distribute. We don't have to worry about having multiple keys. So let's take a look at asymmetric. This is a little bit different. It's a little more complex. It's a security. It uses public keys, which we'll get into in a second. But the strengths: confidentiality, key management, proof of origin is there, integrity, non-repudiation, access control, and authentication. The weaknesses is the key size is generally 1024, 248, or 4000 bits, and it's slower because it's using one item at a time. So we have multiple keys. Here's our document here, goes through our algorithm, comes out encrypted with key A, right here. And when we unencrypt, or de-encryption process, here's our encrypted process. It comes through our algorithm in here, and we use a separate key. So we have two different keys. And this makes it a little bit busier. And this makes it a little bit able to use on the internet a little easier. We're going to talk about that in a second a little bit more. The next thing that we're going to look at is block ciphering. Block ciphering is plain text. Blocks of plain text are broken into block ciphering. Basically, block ciphering, what that does is it takes plain text, breaks it into blocks, and gets it ciphered by blocks. So we can use multiple modes. It has variable key size, block sizes. Think of it as an assembly line. The blocks are determined by the algorithm. So here is our text that we're going to be working on a dark, stormy night. So block 1 is just on A. Block 2 is dark, and it breaks up the message in that into small little bits. So the next block could be and a stormy night. It could have two words depending. Well, it would probably have and, then stormy, and breaks it up. Then that block goes into our algorithm and it comes out. So block 1 on A would look like this, block 2 would look like this, and block 3 and so on. So it breaks it up into small manageable blocks. So if you have something large, this could be cumbersome. So these are some of the blocks that are available. that we use. Output feedback, cipher block chaining. These are just the modes: electronic code and inner block cipher. So this is just some of the things. Now, what a streaming cipher does, a streaming cipher is a little bit different. And the fact that it sequences it bit by bit. And statistically, it's unpredictable, unbiased, operates on individual bits. So if you look here, here's our plain text on a stormy night. And this is our key we're going to be using, which is here. And it literally is doing it bit by bit instead of doing it as a block. It converts each bit. So this bit of information will be converted to this. And when you look at the cipher text, it is completely different, but it does it bit by bit. So the block cipher actually is easy to implement, provide integrated protection, useful the amount of data. It's known ahead of time. Requires a lot of memory and susceptible to corruption of the data. Some examples of block ciphering is DES, which has a block size of 64 bits and a key size of 56. 3DES is triple that, and it has two independent keys. IDEA uses 64-bit blocks and 128, so it kind of replaces the DES. RC5 debuted in 1994, variable block sizes, which is kind of a nice thing. It allows you to break it up. And the key size, look at that, goes from 0 to 2040. AES, which was developed in 2001, uses a block size of 128 and the key size of 128, 192, or 256. And then the Blowfish is a 64-bit, and it has variable key sizes of 1 to 448. So here's a short video of using the block cipher.
Welcome to cryptography lesson number 1. In this lesson, we will focus on one of the fundamental cryptographic tools that has a wide variety of uses in the field today, block ciphers. Before we talk about how block ciphers work, though, let's take a step back for a moment and attempt to understand the importance of block ciphers in the field of cryptography. Imagine you wake up one day and are ready to start your day with a nice bowl of cereal. People would typically view this as you getting some cereal and some milk. But they're actually forgetting some things that are just as important as the cereal and milk: the spoon and the bowl. Have you ever tried eating cereal without a bowl and a spoon? Simply put, it just doesn't work. And that's exactly how important block ciphers are to cryptography. Using cryptographic schemes without block ciphers is like trying to eat cereal without a spoon or a bowl. And of course, like spoons and bowls, block ciphers come in all different shapes and sizes and can be used in all sorts of different ways. To illustrate how block ciphers work, let's consider a game commonly found on the back of cereal boxes. It reads, "Decrypt the following message using the table above." In this example, we're going to call this message the ciphertext. The game is asking us to translate it to plaintext. To solve this puzzle, we would simply look at the letters in the ciphertext row of this table and see what plaintext they correspond to. In this case, they would spell the word face. Now, can you spot the difference between the plaintext and the ciphertext in this example? As you can see, the ciphertext characters are simply the plaintext characters shifted with wraparound to the right by 1. In other words, when making this puzzle, a plaintext word was chosen, and this table was used to come up with the encrypted version of that word. This is very similar to the function of a block cipher. Specifically, a block cipher will take an input and translate it to something else using a table much like the one in this example. However, as we saw with this example, a block cipher such as this does not provide much in the way of security. In fact, we are able to quickly solve the puzzle. To improve the security of block ciphers, the table itself actually consists of several rows which are selected from using a secret key. If someone wanted to decode a message without knowing the key, they would have to guess which row to use. With a large enough block cipher, the probability of them choosing correctly is extremely small.
So that's just a quick summary of what a block cipher does and how it works. Streaming ciphers is part of the symmetric algorithm. On average, they are faster than block ciphers. They're working at the bit level. The conversion is done at the binary level of the computer. As we know, all computers are binary, so this is done right at the lowest level for the information. And the key stream uses either ones or zeros. Some advantages: no size difference between plain text and ciphertext, so from looking at it, it looks the same size. Very suitable for hardware implementations and serial communications. Disadvantage: very difficult to implement correctly. It's generally weaker than block cipher mode and difficult to generate truly random unbiased key streams. We have a one-time pad. This is another part of the ciphering process. This key is generated and used only once. It's used to encrypt and decrypt. Basically, it was used during the war, World War II, from ship to shore. So basically, you had keys generated. The ships would get them. The command center would tell them, use this key number. And once it was used, it was useless after that. So this is what they mean. It's just it's generated, used one time only, and then discarded. So one of the downsides is that they would have to generate multiple keys for them and then just let them know which one was being used at which time. Key management. Public keys. Asymmetric has a key management issue. This occurs when both parties are not in the same area. So if I wanted to generate a new key for someone who isn't near me, I'd have to figure out a way to get it to them. So back in 1976, public keys were invented by Diffie and Hellman. And basically what it did is it changed the way it was done. We have public and private key systems now. These keys, you had a public key that was generated, and then you just had to have the right private key to unencrypt it. The two keys, and what makes it nice, they were linked mathematically, so you'd be able to have that private key. And here's a short interview with Hellman.
In the early 1970s, three young computer scientists saw that a revolution in the way we communicate would require a revolution in the way we keep secrets.
I began thinking about, quote, the paperless office. Right. And what bothered me was, well, what would you do for a signature?
Until 1976, all cryptographic or secrecy systems since the time of Caesar's cipher were based on the physical exchange of a single secret key that unlocked its secret code.
On the internet, that's impossible.
At the University of California, Berkeley in 1974, an undergraduate student named Ralph Merkle envisioned a new way to exchange secrets between computers. His professor rejected the idea as muddled, and a leading scientific journal said it didn't make sense.
It meant that this really was a good idea.
Down the highway at Stanford University, Professor Martin Hellman was getting similar reactions until he met Whit Diffie.
It was just such a meeting of the minds, and it was so nice to find someone who didn't think I was crazy.
Building on Merkle's ideas, Diffie and Hellman proposed a radically new cryptographic method with not one, but two keys, a public key and a private key.
But the critical point was the private key could not be discovered from the public key.
You encrypt the message using the public key, which I gave you over the open communications channel. The eavesdropper knows the encryption method, the publicly revealed encryption method. They see the secret encrypted message coming back, and now they want to work it backwards, but they can't.
With a public key and a secret key, I can use my secret key to sign the message, and you can use my public key to verify it.
Hellman, Diffie, and Merkle received their patent for public key cryptography in 1980 and fought for a decade to make it publicly accessible. Today, we rarely notice the little lock icon that's the foundation of global e-commerce and electronic security, a lock brought to life by three men who saw that everyone needs to keep secrets.
So that's just a quick example of how it was created and invented. And we use it every day in the internet. As it's pointed out in the video, that little S at the end of the HTTPS or the little lock, well, that tells you you're using either public or private keys and how it's working. So it really is an important part of how we use information today. And here are some common algorithms. The RSA is the most commonly used, and it performs the key generation and the encryption process. We have the Diffie and Hellman, performs the key management. It does not perform encryption. It just lets the two parties have that relationship. The ECC performs algorithms on a curved line and intersecting lines. It uses very little processing power. That's its advantage. So what did we cover this week? Symmetric algorithms, asymmetric algorithms, the difference between block ciphers and stream ciphers, and the importance of key management. Have a wonderful week.